Hello everybody, welcome back to my Country Sparkles channel. I'm Rachel and today I'm going to be talking about our baby chicks and what we've learned between week 3 and week 4 of having them. Now this is our first time having chicks. We're very new and there's a lot to learn, and there are things that I didn't know so much about that I wish I would have known about before I got my chicks. Not that I wouldn't have gotten them, I just would have rather been prepared, and I'm going to talk about some of those things during this video. So after week 2, when you go into week 3 to week 4, week 3 especially is their like teenage year week when they are really splotchy, something like that. All their little baby feather fluff starts to fall out and they start to get their teenage wing feathers in, and they have some bald spots and they're not as cute as they were the first 2 weeks of having them. So that happens so fast. Like week 3, they really change from babies to teenagers, and it was so amazing how fast that was. And then by the week 4 of having them, it was their adult feathers have more come in, and the little ones, there are a couple little ones still there, but for the most part they're not as blotchy anymore. They're filling in a lot more nicely during week 4. So with all that feather loss, where are those feathers going to go? They're going to go everywhere in my kitchen, apparently. I did not even think about that once those feathers got lost, like I don't know why I thought, like maybe I thought they transitioned from little fluff into big feathers, not that like they literally lost the little feathers and got replaced with bigger feathers, but they do. They get replaced. And so all the little fluff ball feathers, instead of being in your hand on a little chickie, are all over my kitchen floor. So that's not so much fun. I get to sweep multiple times a day so I don't have feathers all over my house. Week 3 is the beginning week of them becoming messy chickens instead of baby chickens. So they start to lose their feathers. They also start to dust bathe in all their pine shavings, which isn't too bad, but when you have pine shavings and they've been scratching through them and they break it up into little pieces, plus their little baby feathers, plus their poo that gets on the pine stuff, you get a lot of dust in your house, and they will kick that up and they will bathe themselves with it. And sometimes that will get kicked out of your brooder if it's in your home and lead to more sweeping. I have ended up putting up higher sides on my brooder to keep that all contained, but there is a light layer of dust everywhere and I have to wash everything multiple times a day, and I did not even think about this situation, but be aware of it. If you're gonna have chickens in your house more than 2 weeks, you're gonna have feathers everywhere. You're gonna start having dust everywhere. And with those two things also, your home is gonna start smelling like a farm store. I'm not too impressed with the whole farm store scent in my home at this point, so our baby chicks will be moving out very soon. We got them a little bit earlier than we probably should have because we want them to be laying before winter. We have a pretty short season here, and so we can't move them out yet because it's too cold. It's still too cold even in our garage, so I'm suffering through it, and my house is going to get a very deep clean once they are out. But something I did not know before I got chicks is how messy they are at so young, like 3 weeks of life. Who would have thought? It's kind of a disaster, especially for somebody who really likes things to be clean. So that is one huge thing that I have learned this week 3 and week 4 of their lives. They're still a lot of fun. They still, certain ones will let us hold them more than others. Others are like, do not touch me, you stay away. So it's fun to see their personalities coming out like that. And then when they do lose their baby feathers, sometimes they look very different from when they were a baby to when they're adult, and the patterns that they're getting on their feathers as they come in are so pretty to see, and see the different colors and what they kind of like a little glimpse of what they're going to look like when they are adult chickens. And that is so fun and so pretty to see. So I'm really grateful that we get to see that in our home. I get to see that process every day. even though I'd be seeing them even in my garage, like as I feed them, and I check on them every day, like just seeing that progress in my home and my boys seeing it as they're around it. It's been really fun to experience that. So another thing that I have read about as I've done all my chicken studying and stuff, but was still kind of clueless on, was pecking and chicken cannibalism. So I've seen this mentioned a few times, like, oh, hey, if your chicken gets hurt or something, then the other chickens, they like blood and they'll see the red and they'll start pecking at it. So be really careful. If a chicken gets hurt, you need to take care of it really fast to prevent cannibalism between the chickens. So I was like, oh, well, if they're safe in my home, they're not going to get scratched or anything like that. I wasn't really worried about it at this point. But at 3 weeks, almost exactly, my chickens decided to start picking at each other to decide a pecking order. And somehow, they started out with one. One of them got hurt from overpecking. That's the only possible way it could have gotten hurt in our brooder that we have. And so some other chicken was picking on it, and then it started bleeding, and then all the chickens started picking at her. Like, it was like, you know how like little kids and they play soccer and they just follow the ball around the court and they don't like stay in their positions anymore? It's like that, but with chickens, picking on one chicken. The one chicken will move and the whole herd of them will follow her around, just pecking her until there's nothing left. Luckily, because they're in my home, I did see this and I was like, what's happening? Why is there blood? And this is throwing me off a lot. So I took her out. I was like, what's going on? I washed her up. I got the blood off. They got her pretty good. Her like wing elbow was bare, feathers, it was gone, and then underneath her wing they gotten down to her skin, and it was all like almost like road burned, but from chicken beaks. And so be aware of that. So we took her out, washed her off. We had to make an isolation pen for her, so she's not a little baby anymore, so she can't fit in her box by herself. It doesn't give her enough room that we brought her home in from the store. So we took our dog crate, because we just had on hand, if we had a box or something, we would have used that, whatever we had on hand, to make an isolation place for her to keep her away from everybody else so she can get better. And then like just within like the half an hour of doing that, I look over and then there's another one being packed, like two, like within a half an hour. I'm like, what just happened? And so I got another one that was pecked almost worse than the first. And so I took that out and then we isolated them together, and luckily they were okay. I look over and guess what? There's a third one. Not as bad, luckily, because I was really keeping a good eye on them. They got her tail feathers and got about half of them out, and there was only a little bit of bleeding. But oh my word, like within an hour, I had 3 injured chickens. I was like 3 weeks old, 3 injured chickens. I am the worst chicken person ever. What just happened? So I did so much more research about cannibalism, and then I also watched which ones were pecking them, and there were 4 or 5 that we thought were the culprits. So we took them out and put them in timeout, and apparently I have lots of dog crates around my house. And a separate dog crate that actually happened to pick up that day at a thrift store, because I don't know why. I was like, oh, this is cheap, I'm gonna get it. And I did, and I used it to isolate the peckers too, because I'm like, okay, you guys are getting too full of yourself apparently. You need to be isolated to reset the pecking order from something I read. So we isolated them, so we had injured, and we had our peckers in 2 different areas. After isolating them and doing some research, we learned about some medicine that you can spray on your chickens if they get injured, and that's called Vetricin spray. So we found some of that at our local cow ranch. We ran and got that to help them heal up quickly. I felt like it really kept it from getting infected and sped up the healing process really well. I don't think it was 100% necessary. We could have just washed it out and kept it clean, and if we were really vigilant with it, it would have healed up. I think it would have taken a little longer though. So we felt like it was worth it was about $25 to $30 that we spent on it to get that and to get them healed up quickly so we could get them reunited all back together again. And so we got that. But we have lots of chickens too, so it's like with how many chickens we have, we're like, other things are going to happen. We're going to want these injuries healed quickly, so it's worth it to spend the money for this Vetricin spray to get them healed up nice and quickly. But if you're vigilant about keeping track of your chickens and their injuries, then I think that you can probably keep it clean on your own if you don't want to spend the money, but you just want to make sure everything's clean, because they can get dust and injuries can probably get infected super easily with all their dust bathing and stuff like that. So that's something that we decided to purchase. Another thing that we discovered that we didn't really know about was called no pick. So people say peck, but it's actually spelled pick, P-I-C-K, instead of P-E-C-K, like pecking would be P-E-C-K. I don't know why it's called no pick, but no picking lotion is what it's specifically called, and it's got a purple dye in it. And I did read a lot of things about saying don't put anything on your chickens with dye in it, because then that will attract the other chicks to them more, and it could cause an even bigger problem because they're attracted to that spot. But we were like, well, we couldn't find anything that didn't have dye in it, so, and we needed the pecking to stop. So we're like, we're just gonna go for it, and we'll just keep an eye on it. And this stuff smelled really bad, and so we tried on a couple different birds that they were kind of picking out a little bit that weren't injured, and any chicks that would go by them, or that like wing that they were going after, they'd like smell it and then they'd like shake their head and walk away. So from our experience, we were like, oh, hey, look, that works. I was like $10 or something like that. Totally worth it to keep your chickens from getting injured if you can hone in on that pecking early and get that taken care of. That is seriously the best thing that you can do in that situation. And I had no idea, like, I have read about cannibalism minorly, but not, I did not know it would happen at 3 weeks old, so I was very mind blown by that situation. Okay, as your chicks get older, they're gonna outgrow probably whatever pool or brooder, original brooder that you have them in. I would suggest changing their brooders at about 2 weeks or like 4 weeks, because at 3 weeks, that's when their feathers and things are coming in and they're getting kind of blotchy. And we think that's one reason that our chickens started picking each other, because they were blotchy, and so they could see their skin through it, and so they're like, oh, here's something new, let's peck at it. And then also we changed their brooder week 3, and so they were a little stressed about that, about the change. And then it started getting lighter outside also because of spring coming, and so there was more natural light, and we think all 3 of those factors played into our chicken cannibalism situation. So changing out brooder, I would suggest not doing it during week 3, because there's already too much like hormonal feather changing things going on. So just like maybe the less the change, the better is what I would say during week 3 especially. At week 3, they also start to get a lot noisier at night. They're not sleeping as well, and they're like kind of climbing all over each other, and one will wake up and then they'll want to wake them all up. So they're not so quiet anymore as they were when they were chicks, and they kind of sleep through most of the night. So week 3, it's a very special week for all of them. Another thing you want to keep in mind when you buy your chicks is the time of year that you got them. We got our chicks at the end of February, which was really early, and our spring doesn't really start until like April, and so it's gonna be a while before they're out of our garage even. But you want them out of your house around 2 weeks. So it's like, okay, when's my garage gonna be warm enough to put them in? When they're about 2 weeks. Order your chicks to come about 2 weeks before that date. That's when you want your chicks to be in your home. And then you want them out of your garage probably about 6 weeks into their coop is what we're estimating. We haven't made it to 6 weeks yet, but we're thinking that's about the time frame that we're gonna want them out of our garage, because they'll be big enough and have enough feathers to keep themselves warm. So as long as our coop is done by then, we plan on having them out of our garages and everything at 6 weeks into their actual chicken house and chicken run, which we are really excited about, and we're building, and I'll make a video of that when it's done. But that is all the things I've learned and my advice for weeks 3 to 4 of having chicks and chickens. Like I said before, we are learning a lot. We're very new. Some of the stuff is very surprising, and I might have heard about it a little bit, but you don't know until you know. And now we know a lot more than we did before. Thank you for joining me in this video, and I hope you liked it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you can join us next time. And if you have any questions or comments or advice for us, I'd love to hear it. Leave it down below, and I try to respond to everything. So I hope to see you next time, and we'll see you later.